Here's a true love story, a story of devotion, courage, youth, and blessing. This is a story of a young woman who lived in a village where her father was respected, but he wanted more prestige. So he tried to marry off his very young daughter to an elder in the village, a business person who he thought would bring more benefit to his family. She refused. She wouldn't have anything to do with it. She said, "If you marry me off to this old man, I will simply leave. I refuse to do it." He kicked her out. In that day and age, the practice was you do as your father says, and you marry who you're told, and the marriages could be arranged at a very young age. She would have nothing to do with it. Off she went. And she decided instead to marry a young boy that she knew and adored. But this young boy had a serious disease. He had such a case of leprosy that he could only be carried in a basket. He couldn't walk. And yet the devotion they had between the two of them, these two young people, was so strong that she carried him everywhere on her back. Well, one day, a very long day, and a beautiful sunny day, she came across a pond, and the two of them under a tree sat and rested. She took off the basket, put him under the tree so that he would have shade. And she sat there for a moment and said, "I'm going to go to the village. I'm going to get us some food. You can relax here in the shade. I won't be long. When I come back, we'll have our meal." Well, he was reluctant at first, but there was such a love, such a devotion, such a trust. Off she went. Now he looked at this lake, this pond, this water in front of him, and he thought, could this be dangerous? Could this be beautiful? This is a reflection of the sky. And as he looked at the water, a bird flew overhead. Now this bird had a broken wing. It was obvious. It was hanging and it was bleeding. Blood was dripping. And the bird swooped into the water, went under the water, came back up, and was healed. The wing was perfect, and the bird flew away. Well, our young man, he looked at this bird, and he looked at the water, he looked at the sky, and he thought, could it heal me? So he rolled in the basket to the water's edge. And he rolled himself into the water so that the basket drifted off. And so that he wouldn't drown, he just held on with the little bit of hand that he had to the edge of a root of a tree. And he let himself slip into the water, holding on with just one barely functioning hand. He came up for air, and he was healed. He was beautiful. He walked back out of the water to sit under the tree. And when his wife came back, he stood up to meet her, and she slapped him. She started punching him. "Who are you and what have you done with my husband? How could you do this? How could you take a man who is helpless in a basket and drown him and try to steal from him? And now you're coming after me?" She pointed to the pond, to the lake, and said, "Look, the basket is there. What have you done with him?" She continued to pound on his chest. And he said, "But it's me, darling, it's me." And he tried to tell her the story amidst all this hysteria. He told her of the bird, he told her of the water, he told her of the healing and what he had done. And she couldn't believe it, of course. It was too outrageous. Until as he was holding up his hands to protect himself from her blows, she saw that the one hand had not been healed, the one that had been holding him safe out of the water. And she stood back, and she realized that he was telling the truth. This really was her husband. And she looked in his eyes, and they knew that they had been blessed. This is a story of love and devotion and blessing, and it's a true story. In fact, The tree that this happened under still exists in the Far East, in India. You can sit under it yourself. But more importantly, this tree lives inside of you. This place of harmony, this lake of healing, it's in you.